Welcome to the dark side of Brooklyn, where chaos meets cunning. Today we uncover the gripping tale of the KavKaz Nation, an Eastern European gang shaking up the criminal underworld with daring heists, drug trafficking, and even a dramatic jailbreak from Riker's island. A group of Eastern European criminals operating in Brooklyn has recently managed to draw attention in a way that hasn't been seen in years. Known as the KavKaz Nation, this loosely organized gang has disrupted the borough's criminal landscape with a string of audacious crimes, culminating in a brazen jailbreak from Riker's island that captured widespread notice. Their actions have not only shaken the local underworld, but also highlighted their penchant for chaos and violence, a reputation that has been steadily building over the past decade. Operating primarily in the neighborhoods of Brighton Beach and Manhattan Beach, the KavKaz Nation has carved out a name for itself by targeting rival criminal enterprises. Their methods include robbing drug dealers, orchestrating violent home invasions, and trafficking substantial quantities of cocaine and marijuana. These operations have allowed them to maintain a degree of influence in Brooklyn's southern territories, even as their rivals dismiss them as second-tier players in the broader world of organized crime. Despite their boldness and ferocity, the KavKaz Nation remains a far cry from the upper echelons of ex-Soviet organized crime syndicates. Unlike the elite leaders known as thieves-in-law, who dominate the highest levels of Eastern European criminal hierarchies with intricate networks and ironclad codes of conduct, the KavKaz Nation lacks the sophistication and discipline required to achieve such prominence. This distinction places them in a unique position, feared on the streets for their raw violence but looked down upon by the established criminal elite. Their reputation as unpredictable and dangerous is well-deserved. Over the years, they have terrorized local communities and rivals alike with their ruthless tactics. However, their inability to rise to the status of true power players within the broader framework of organized crime highlights a fundamental limitation. Unlike their more methodical and influential counterparts, who operate with calculated precision, the KavKaz Nation's approach leans heavily on brute force and opportunism. The KavKaz gang recently grabbed the public's attention with a dramatic and highly publicized escape from Riker's Island, the city's infamous floating jail. According to officials, the daring jailbreak involved an inmate sliding down a makeshift rope from his fifth-floor cell aboard the Vernon C. Bain Correctional Center on July 10th. The brazen act was made possible with assistance from one of the gang's high-ranking members, Roman Nikogosian, who allegedly orchestrated the plan to smuggle the escapee to safety. Prosecutors revealed that Nikogosian had meticulously arranged for the fugitive, David Mordekiev, to flee across the country to California. However, their elaborate scheme unraveled before it could reach its conclusion. Law enforcement, aided by wiretaps on Nikogosian's phone, intercepted their communications and quickly pieced together the escape plan. Federal agents moved swiftly, arresting both men as they allegedly worked out the final details of Mordekiev's cross-country getaway. While the plan ultimately failed, the boldness of the escape itself marked a significant victory for the KavKaz crew, earning them a rare moment in the spotlight. This gang, rooted in Brooklyn's Eastern European enclave, has a reputation for its unrelenting ambition and penchant for bold moves. Members of the KavKaz Nation are often seen associating with other notorious criminal groups, including the Bloods, a gang with a strong presence in nearby Coney Island. Such alliances, though unlikely on the surface, highlight the KavKaz crew's willingness to blur traditional boundaries in pursuit of power and influence. The gang's name pays homage to the Caucasus region of Eurasia, which encompasses Armenia, Uzbekistan, Russia, and Azerbaijan, reflecting the origins of many of its members. To demonstrate their loyalty to the crew, some members tattoo the image of the Caucasus Mountains onto their bodies, a permanent mark of their allegiance and identity. This shared cultural heritage binds them together as they carry out robberies, drug trafficking, and other criminal enterprises. Over the years, the KavKaz crew's activities have drawn the attention of more seasoned Eastern European crime bosses operating in Brooklyn. However, this attention has not always been favorable. Rather than being recognized as equals or potential allies, the KavKaz gang is often regarded as reckless upstarts whose actions sometimes disrupt the carefully maintained order of the criminal underworld. Their high-profile exploits, like the Riker's escape, may grab headlines, but they also reinforce their image as a group that relies on audacity and brute force rather than the calculated strategies employed by more established criminal organizations. In 2012, a violent confrontation unfolded in Brooklyn's Sheepshead Bay, bringing the KavKaz crew face-to-face with one of the city's most notorious Russian mobsters, Leonid Gershman. Known for his ruthlessness, Gershman was serving a 16-year federal prison sentence at the time, but remained a dominant force in the criminal underworld. When one of his Ocean Avenue stash houses, used to store marijuana, was robbed, he immediately suspected the involvement of KavKaz members. Suspicion quickly fell on a crew member named Misha Azayev, who Gershman believed was tied to the heist. Determined to send a message, Gershman and two of his associates set a trap for Azayev. They lured him to Ocean Parkway, near Avenue Y, a seemingly ordinary residential stretch of Brooklyn that would soon become the stage for a brutal act of violence. As daylight lingered and local residents went about their routines, the gang confronted Azayev in the open, demanding answers about the robbery. What began as an interrogation quickly escalated into chaos when one of Gershman's men drew a pistol. Sensing the imminent danger, Azayev made a desperate attempt to flee but was overpowered. Gershman's crew tripped him, and what followed was nothing short of savage. The beating was relentless. Azayev's face became the primary target of their fury, with one gangster smashing him repeatedly with the butt of his pistol. The force of the blows was so severe that Azayev's teeth were knocked out, scattering on the pavement as horrified neighbors, seated on their front lawns and eating dinner, bore witness to the assault. The attack painted a grim picture of the gangland brutality that often hides in plain sight within Brooklyn's seemingly peaceful neighborhoods. Yet, despite the ferocity of the attack, Gershman's crew later discovered that their rage had been misdirected. Azayev, it turned out, had not been involved in the stash house robbery at all. The real culprits had simply used his car, making him an unwitting scapegoat in the heist. One of Gershman's associates, reflecting on the incident in court, admitted the tragic irony of the situation. "We later found out that Misha wasn't the person that did it. They just used his car. He just got beat up basically for nothing," the cohort testified. This incident underscored the volatile and often chaotic nature of Brooklyn's underworld, where alliances are tenuous and even a perceived slight can provoke merciless retaliation. However, not all KavKaz members fit the mold of unsophisticated opportunists. Among their ranks was at least one exception, a leader who managed to transcend the gang's reputation for impulsiveness and disorganization. Nadik Nisimov, a prominent KavKaz boss, carved out a unique position of authority within southern Brooklyn's organized crime circles. Nisimov owned a barbershop on Ditmars Avenue in Kensington, a legitimate front for his influence in the Eastern European criminal underworld. His reputation commanded enough respect that even figures like Gershman, known for his ruthless domination, were swayed by Nisimov's counsel. Unlike his peers, Nisimov's ability to navigate the complexities of Brooklyn's criminal hierarchy demonstrated that, while many KavKaz members struggled to rise above their reputation as minor players, there were exceptions who wielded real power and influence. In 2013, a cocaine courier working for Leonid Gershman found himself at the center of a life-threatening situation after a series of events that enraged his dangerous employer. The courier, Rufat Zarbalov, shared an ethnic background with members of the KavKaz crew, but this connection did little to shield him when things went wrong. According to prosecutors, Zarbalov claimed he had been robbed of both the drugs and cash he was handling while making deals on behalf of Gershman. The explanation, however, did not sit well with the seasoned mobster, who immediately suspected that Zarbalov was lying and orchestrating a setup. Unwilling to let the alleged betrayal go unpunished, Gershman summoned Zarbalov to the underground parking garage of his Ocean Parkway residence. The meeting quickly turned sinister. Holding a box cutter to the courier's face, Gershman issued a chilling threat, promising to give Zarbalov what he called a 150. This wasn't a random number, but a brutal term referencing a slash from the mouth to the ear, a wound so severe it would take 150 stitches to repair. The implied violence underscored Gershman's reputation as a ruthless enforcer within Brooklyn's criminal underworld. Faced with such a grim fate, Zarbalov did the only thing he could think of to save his life. He sought the intervention of Nadig Nisimov, the respected leader of the KavKaz crew. Nisimov's influence in the Eastern European criminal circles of southern Brooklyn was significant enough to broker peace between dangerous figures like Gershman and lesser players like Zarbalov. Acting as a mediator, Nisimov arranged to sit down with Gershman to resolve the conflict and prevent further violence. The negotiations proved successful, at least to a degree. Gershman ultimately agreed not to carry out his threat to maim Zarbalov or to demand financial restitution from him for the alleged loss. However, there was a cost. Both parties reached a consensus that Zarbalov would no longer be allowed to operate in their criminal network. For a low-level courier like him, this decision effectively marked the end of his career in the dangerous and lucrative world of drug trafficking. While the resolution highlighted Nisimov's growing stature and his ability to navigate the volatile dynamics of Brooklyn's criminal landscape, his power came with its own risks. Despite his ability to defuse situations like the one involving Zarbalov, Nisimov's own life would come to a violent end. Ironically, his downfall was not the result of high-stakes rivalries or grand schemes, but rather a seemingly trivial dispute with another hardened figure from Brooklyn's criminal underworld. In the unforgiving world he inhabited, even minor conflicts could spiral into fatal consequences, underscoring the relentless and precarious nature of his position. On the morning of March 24, 2015, the life of Nadig Nisimov came to a violent end in the quiet neighborhood of Midwood, Brooklyn. As he walked along Ocean Parkway near Quinton Road, he was fatally shot in broad daylight, a brutal culmination of events that prosecutors later attributed to a tragic misunderstanding. The shooter, identified as Brighton Beach resident Jeffrey McCrae, believed Nisimov had supplied a knife to an individual who had attacked and stabbed one of McCrae's friends earlier that morning. Acting on this assumption, McCrae sought revenge, taking matters into his own hands with deadly consequences. However, subsequent investigations cleared Nisimov of any involvement in the earlier stabbing. Authorities determined that he had no connection to the altercation that set the violent chain of events in motion. McCrae, nevertheless, was held accountable for his actions. In 2018, he was convicted of the murder and sentenced to 19 years in prison, bringing some measure of justice to the senseless killing of a man whose reputation as a significant figure in Brooklyn's underworld had made him a target. In a separate case years later, Brooklyn's criminal circles were once again thrust into the spotlight with another high-profile incident. The daring 2023 jailbreak of David Mordekiev, an associate linked to the KavKaz crew, became a focal point of law enforcement scrutiny. Mordekiev, who had escaped from Riker's island in a bold maneuver, pleaded guilty to violating federal supervised release. As a result, he was sentenced to nearly 2 years in prison by a Brooklyn federal court, marking yet another chapter in the long list of dramatic exploits tied to the crew. Meanwhile, Roman Nikogosian, a prominent member of the KavKaz gang, also found himself at the center of legal troubles. While not directly charged for his alleged involvement in the escape, Nikogosian faced a slew of other accusations. A 5-count indictment alleged that he had extorted a marijuana dealer working under him and orchestrated a scheme to transport luxury cars fraudulently acquired in California to New York. Federal agents also uncovered a Hi-Point 995 rifle at a Brooklyn stash house linked to him, resulting in additional charges of being a felon in possession of a firearm. Despite these serious allegations, Nikogosian's attorney, Don Savada, expressed confidence in his client's defense, asserting that the forthcoming evidence would challenge the prosecution's claims. With a history of high-stakes criminal activity and audacious schemes, Nikogosian's case continues to unravel, casting a long shadow over the already infamous KavKaz crew and the broader criminal networks of southern Brooklyn. The intertwining fates of figures like Nisimov and Nikogosian underscore the volatility and peril inherent in their world, where violence, betrayal, and legal repercussions are constant companions.